The Big House and the Victors, two of the most iconic facets of college football history. Yet just across the border, a similar beloved song in Carmen, Ohio, and dazzling stadium in the shoe rouse Ohio State fans from around the globe. Each year, nearly 200 men line up and battle against one another, a war lasting since they first competed against each other on October 16, 1897. This is the story of the many Ohio men who have spurned their in-state university in favor of the maize and blue. This is the story of how these men have irrevocably changed the game as we know it. This is the story of Ohio Wolverines.
Greatest rivalry in all of sports.
I hope you're ready to watch the biggest game of the season. It's a world-famous Ohio State
to the shoe.
And the Michigan Wolverines Stadium. And we are ready for the game.
So, what are you doing to beat Ohio State today?
Michigan makes a stand. Michigan comes up with a milestone playoff victory.
And Michigan will win the game.
Everything we've been working for is right here, right now. Why not us?
Beginning with Michigan's 1882 football season and spanning all the way to the Wolverines' last win over Washington in the national championship, the history of Michigan football has been shaped by some of the best Ohioans to ever grace the game. Men like Heisman Trophy winner Charles Woodson, whose 77-yard punt return against OSU in 1997, the only such return of his career, is one of the most iconic and important moments in modern Michigan football history. Or Columbus natives like 2023 national champion Rod Moore, whose non-recruitment by the Buckeyes has left reverberating impacts throughout all of college football. But before we dive deeper into these modern-day Ohio Wolverines, let's rewind a bit. The year is 1882. Just 3 years prior, the club era of Michigan football commenced as the Wolverines defeated Racine College 1-0 in a neutral site affair in Chicago, Illinois. Now, the first Ohio Wolverine in Michigan football history has packed his bags and traveled from Bryan, Ohio to Ann Arbor. Horace Prettyman has arrived. Prettyman was originally born in small-town Ohio in 1857. In his early 20s, he moved from Bryan to Ann Arbor, attending Ann Arbor High for several years until he ultimately enrolled at the University of Michigan. While Prettyman boxed, wrestled, and threw the hammer for the track team at Michigan, his passion for football was far and away his main pursuit. While Horace Prettyman may not have the name recognition like Ohio Wolverine greats Desmond Howard, Charles Woodson, and Jake Butt, his football career is an integral part of the historic Michigan football program. In 1883, a year after arriving on campus, Prettyman scored the first home touchdown in Michigan football history. And although Prettyman's first official season in the maize and blue ended with a disastrous 1-4 record, his handling of the team's finances on a 4-game road trip out east that included games against Harvard and Yale was heralded as quote-unquote excellent management by his teammates. In the years following that quite forgettable 1883 football campaign, Prettyman was elected a 3-time captain, the only player in Michigan football history to receive that honor, and one that instantly catapults him to Ohio Wolverine legend status. Horace's legendary U of M influence does not end with his football career. Once his playing days were done, Prettyman purchased a house with his soon-to-be wife Jenny at the corner of North University Avenue and Fletcher Street. Here is where the Michigan football program took arguably its greatest leap forward in its storied history. The same training tables that Michigan President James B. Angel sought so adamantly to abolish in the 1906 Angel Conference were held nightly at Pretz. beginning in the 1890s and spanning until the construction of the Michigan Union and Michigan League in 1919 and 1930 respectively. Prettyman's was regarded as Wolverine football's unofficial headquarters, serving athletes without charge every night. Pratt's also serves both as a literal and metaphorical end of an era, as it is thought that legendary Michigan football coach Fielding Yost was hired by university officials in the southeast corner of Horace Prettyman's house. As the club era of Michigan football ended, the Yost era began, and it did so with a bang. In Yost's first season as Wolverine head coach, the team outscored opponents by an astounding 550-0, including victories over bitter rivals Ohio State and Chicago. This 23rd iteration of the Boys in Maize and Blue had 5 Ohio Wolverines on the roster, the most notable of which was halfback Albert Herrnstein, whose imprint was felt all across the OSU-Michigan rivalry throughout much of the early 1900s. Early success throughout a collegiate athletic program has always been absolutely essential for sustained greatness going into the future. Albert Herrnstein's presence in the beginning stages of the OSU-Michigan rivalry is certainly a major contributing factor as to why the Wolverines hold a 61-51 edge over their fiercest of rivals. In the 1902 Michigan football season, Herrnstein's 5th and final campaign in the not-yet winged helmet, he rushed for 26 touchdowns. Yes, 26 rushing touchdowns. From a pure touchdown perspective, this mark is the second best in a single season in the 144-year history of Michigan football, trailing only that of Blake Corum's 2023 effort, in which he scored 27 rushing touchdowns, albeit in 4 more games. Michigan's 1902 campaign included games and wins against 5 rivals: Michigan Agricultural, now MSU, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Chicago, and Minnesota. Although all of these victories were certainly important in the Wolverines claiming the 1902 national title, their game against Ohio State on October 25th has had the largest impact of any game that season on the present configuration of the game's rivalry. In the 4th ever game of the OSU-Michigan rivalry, the Wolverines defeated the Buckeyes by the largest margin in the game's history, 86-0. The aforementioned Paul Jones, a Michigan player from Youngstown, Ohio, scored a single touchdown in the game, while legendary Michigan halfback and Ohio native Albert Herrnstein scored 5. Once again, yes, 5 touchdowns, 2 of which came from 30 yards out or more. Herrnstein's collection of touchdowns is tied with Hassan Haskins' 2021 performance for the most combined rushing, receiving, or return touchdowns for either side in a single game in the rivalry's history. It may seem obvious that this game leaves much to be forgotten, or at least much to try to be forgotten, for Buckeye fans of all ages. However, without this game, Ohio State's Carmen, Ohio may never have been written. It is common legend that after the Wolverines' thrashing of the Buckeyes in Ann Arbor, Fred Cornell, a freshman on the OSU football team, used the train ride home to write the Buckeyes' famous hymn. Unfortunately for OSU fans around the globe, this means Albert Herrnstein's 5-touchdown extravaganza lives on every time they wrap their arms and sing with one another. Much like Horace Prettyman, Albert Herrnstein's legacy as a Wolverine extends beyond his playing career with the team. Albert is one of 4 Ohio Herrnsteins to suit up in the maize and blue, joining the prestigious company of families like the Edwards and Hutchinsons, amongst others, who have had multiple members don the winged helmet. Al Herrnstein also is a member of the prestigious club whose constituents either coached or played at both Ohio State and Michigan. From 1906 to 1909, Herrnstein was the head coach of the Buckeyes. Luckily for Wolverine fans, he lost all 4 of his meetings with previous mentor Fielding Yost. Michigan's 7-0-1 record against OSU with Herrnstein either playing or coaching certainly brings him as well to Ohio Wolverine legend status.